The Paralympic training facility at Elite Sports Corporation had never seen anything like it. A 12-year-old boy in a homemade wheelchair that somehow outperformed million-dollar professional racing equipment, while CEO Marcus Thompson dismissed it as amateur hour from the sidelines. Alex Rivera sat in his custom-built racing wheelchair at the starting line of Elite Sports' world-renowned training track, his small hands gripping push rims that gleamed with an unusual metallic finish he'd developed in his family's garage workshop. At 12 years old, he was the youngest person ever permitted to test equipment at the facility that had produced 17 Paralympic gold medalists, but his presence had been reluctantly arranged after months of persistent requests from his physical therapist, who insisted the boy's innovations deserved professional evaluation. Before we get to this wonderful story, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now let's get back to the story. Marcus Thompson stood in the observation deck overlooking the track, his arms crossed as he watched what he considered an unnecessary disruption to his facility's rigorous training schedule. At 51, Marcus had built Elite Sports Corporation into the world's premier developer of Paralympic and adaptive sports equipment, with a client roster that included every major Paralympic team and individual champions from 43 countries. His company's racing wheelchairs cost between $8,000 and $15,000 each, incorporating aerospace materials and precision engineering that represented the pinnacle of assistive athletic technology. "Mr. Thompson," said Dr. Sarah Martinez, Alex's physical therapist, as she approached the observation deck, "I really appreciate you allowing Alex to demonstrate his wheelchair modifications. What he's accomplished working from his garage is truly remarkable." Marcus glanced down at Alex, noting the boy's serious concentration as he adjusted various components on his unconventional wheelchair. The design looked amateurish compared to Elite Sports' sleek professional models: welded steel frame painted bright blue, handmade components that appeared to be constructed from repurposed materials, and modifications that violated every established principle of racing wheelchair aerodynamics. "Dr. Martinez," Marcus replied with barely concealed impatience, "I agreed to this demonstration as a professional courtesy. However, I want to manage expectations appropriately. Elite Sports employs the world's leading engineers and material scientists. Our equipment represents decades of research and millions of dollars in development. This boy's garage project, while admirable for its creativity, simply cannot compete with professional-grade athletic equipment." Dr. Martinez nodded diplomatically, though her expression suggested she disagreed with Marcus's assessment. "Alex has been working on wheelchair design for almost 4 years, ever since he was paralyzed in a car accident. His approach to solving mobility challenges has consistently surprised our entire rehabilitation team." Marcus felt a brief pang of sympathy for the boy's circumstances, but his business instincts remained skeptical. He had seen countless amateur inventors over the years, each convinced they had discovered revolutionary improvements that professional engineers had somehow overlooked. The reality was invariably the same: good intentions and creative enthusiasm were no substitute for rigorous engineering, expensive materials, and systematic testing protocols. On the track below, Alex completed his pre-race preparation ritual, checking each component of his wheelchair with the methodical attention that had characterized his approach to engineering since childhood. His racing chair incorporated several innovations that had emerged from necessity rather than expensive research: lightweight aluminum components salvaged from bicycle frames, ball bearings repurposed from skateboard wheels, and push rim modifications designed to maximize power transfer while minimizing hand fatigue. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the track coordinator over the facility's PA system, "we'll be conducting a time trial comparison between our newest Elite Sports X7 racing wheelchair and a custom-built chair designed by 12-year-old Alex Rivera. The distance will be 400 meters, with professional Paralympic athlete Jennifer Walsh piloting the X7. Marcus watched as Jennifer Walsh, a 3-time Paralympic medalist and Elite Sports' primary equipment tester, settled into the company's most advanced racing wheelchair. The X7 represented 2 years of development and $2.3 million in research costs, incorporating carbon fiber construction, computer-optimized aerodynamics, and precision bearings that cost more than most families spent on cars. "This should be over quickly," Marcus muttered to Dr. Martinez, checking his watch and calculating how much productive time this demonstration was consuming. The starting signal echoed across the facility, and both wheelchairs exploded from the line with explosive acceleration. Marcus expected to see Jennifer's superior strength and technique, combined with the X7's advanced engineering, create an immediate gap that would demonstrate the superiority of professional equipment over amateur modifications. Instead, he watched in growing disbelief as Alex's homemade wheelchair not only kept pace with the X7, but gradually began to pull ahead. The boy's unusual push-rim technique and his chair's unconventional wheel alignment created a combination of speed and efficiency that defied everything Marcus thought he understood about racing wheelchair design. By the 200-meter mark, Alex had established a clear lead. His wheelchair's unique bearing system and innovative frame geometry allowed him to maintain higher speeds through the turn, while Jennifer's technically superior equipment struggled with the track's banking. The gap continued to widen as they entered the final straight, with Alex's streamlined position and his chair's aerodynamic modifications proving more effective than Elite Sports' computer-optimized design. Alex crossed the finish line a full 3 seconds ahead of Jennifer Walsh, setting a facility record that had stood for 6 years and been achieved by Olympic-caliber athletes using the most expensive equipment available. The track fell silent except for the click of stopwatches and the quiet whir of Alex's wheelchair as he coasted to a stop. Marcus stared at the electronic timing display, certain there had been some kind of error. A 12-year-old boy in a garage-built wheelchair had just outperformed a Paralympic champion using equipment that represented the pinnacle of modern sports engineering. "That's impossible," Marcus said quietly, more to himself than to Dr. Martinez. "But it just happened, Doctor." Martinez replied with barely concealed satisfaction. "Alex has been trying to get someone in the industry to take his innovations seriously for over a year. Maybe now you'll listen to what he has to say." Marcus descended to the track level, his mind racing with implications he didn't want to accept. Elite Sports' reputation depended on producing the most advanced athletic equipment available. If a child could outperform their best products using repurposed materials and garage workshop techniques, everything Marcus had built his career on was suddenly questionable. "Alex," Marcus said as he approached the boy, who was carefully inspecting his wheelchair for any damage from the high-speed run. "That was an impressive demonstration. How exactly did you achieve those results?" Alex looked up with the serious expression that often characterizes children discussing subjects they're passionate about. "Mr. Thompson, your wheelchairs are really well built, but they're designed based on assumptions that aren't always correct." Marcus felt his professional pride bristling at criticism from a 12-year-old, but the timing display was impossible to argue with. "What kind of assumptions?" "Like thinking that lighter is always better, or that aerodynamics matters more than power transfer efficiency," Alex replied, running his hand along his wheelchair's frame. "I've been testing different approaches for 4 years, and I've found that the best design depends on the specific person using it and the type of racing they're doing." Jennifer Walsh wheeled over to join the conversation, her expression reflecting the same confusion Marcus felt. "Alex, your acceleration through that turn was unlike anything I've experienced. How did your chair maintain stability at those speeds?" Alex's eyes lit up with enthusiasm as he began explaining his modifications. "The wheel alignment creates a gyroscopic effect that actually increases stability as speed increases. Most racing chairs become harder to control at high speeds, but mine gets easier to steer." Marcus listened with growing fascination as Alex described engineering principles that challenged fundamental assumptions underlying Elite Sports' entire product line. The boy's approach was intuitive rather than theoretical, based on empirical testing rather than computer modeling, and focused on practical results rather than adherence to established design conventions. "Alex," Marcus said carefully, "would you be willing to share your design innovations with our engineering team? We might be able to learn from your approach." Alex considered the question with the same seriousness he applied to all adult proposals. Would you use my ideas to help other people who need wheelchairs, or just to make your expensive chairs even more expensive? The directness of the question caught Marcus off guard. Throughout his career, he had focused on developing premium products that commanded high prices and generated substantial profits. Alex was asking him to consider broader social impact rather than just commercial success. Both, Marcus answered honestly. Elite sports is a business, but we're also committed to advancing athletic performance for all disabled athletes. Over the following week, Alex worked with Elite Sports' engineering team to document and analyze his innovations. The collaboration challenged both the boys' intuitive approach and the professionals' established methodologies, leading to insights that neither could have achieved independently. The problem with traditional racing wheelchair design, Alex explained during a technical review session, is that it prioritizes theoretical perfection over practical adaptability. Every person has different body mechanics, strength patterns, and racing styles. A truly optimal wheelchair should accommodate those differences rather than forcing everyone to adapt to standardized equipment. Dr. James Chen, Elite Sports' chief engineer, studied Alex's customization methodology with growing respect. Alex, what you're describing is essentially personalized engineering. We've always assumed that standardization was necessary for mass production and cost control. But what if personalization actually improved performance enough to justify higher costs? Alex asked. If someone could race 3 seconds faster using equipment designed specifically for their body and technique, wouldn't that be worth paying more for? The question sparked intense debate within Elite Sports' development team. Traditional manufacturing emphasized efficiency and standardization, but Alex was proposing a model that prioritized individual optimization over production convenience. Marcus found himself reconsidering fundamental business assumptions he had never questioned. Elite Sports had built its reputation on producing equipment that met the needs of elite athletes, but Alex was demonstrating that even higher performance was possible through more individualized approaches. Alex, Marcus said during their next meeting, your innovations could revolutionize not just racing wheelchairs, but adaptive equipment for all kinds of activities. Would you be interested in a more formal collaboration with Elite Sports? Alex looked uncertain. What kind of collaboration? A partnership where you continue developing innovations while we provide resources, manufacturing capability, and access to athletes who could benefit from your designs, Marcus explained. You would maintain creative control over your ideas while we handle the business aspects of bringing them to market. Dr. Martinez, who had been observing the negotiation, leaned forward with concern. Mr. Thompson, Alex is still a child. Any arrangement would need to prioritize his education and development over commercial considerations. Marcus nodded, understanding that working with a 12-year-old genius required approaches very different from traditional business partnerships. Yeah, absolutely. We're proposing a mentorship program that supports Alex's education while providing him with resources to develop his innovations in ways that help as many people as possible. The arrangement that emerged over the following month was unprecedented in the sports equipment industry. Alex would maintain his garage workshop while gaining access to elite sports materials, testing facilities, and manufacturing capabilities. His innovations would be developed collaboratively, with profits shared between advancing his education and funding programs that provided adaptive equipment to athletes who couldn't afford premium products. The Alex Rivera Innovation Lab, as it became known, represented a completely new approach to adaptive sports equipment development. Rather than designing products for theoretical average users, the lab focused on creating highly customizable solutions that could be adapted to individual needs and preferences. 6 months after Alex's first demonstration at Elite Sports, his innovations had been incorporated into a new line of racing wheelchairs that were outselling the company's traditional products by significant margins. More importantly, the customization principles Alex had developed were being applied to equipment for various adaptive sports, improving performance and accessibility for thousands of athletes worldwide. Marcus stood in the same observation deck where he had initially dismissed Alex's garage-built wheelchair, watching as young athletes tested the latest prototypes emerging from the innovation lab. The boy who had challenged every assumption Marcus held about sports equipment design was now leading development of products that were transforming competitive athletics for disabled athletes globally. "Mr. Thompson," Alex said, joining Marcus in the observation area, "I've been thinking about our next project." Marcus smiled, having learned to anticipate Alex's next innovative leap. "What do you have in mind?" "What if we could create equipment that helps people transition from rehabilitation to competitive athletics? Like wheelchairs that adapt as people get stronger and more skilled, rather than requiring completely new equipment as they progress." The concept represented another paradigm shift in how adaptive equipment was conceived and manufactured. Rather than static products designed for specific performance levels, Alex was proposing dynamic solutions that evolved with their users' developing capabilities. "Alex," Marcus said, recognizing another revolutionary idea when he heard it, "I think you're about to change everything again." 2 years later, the Alex Rivera Innovation Lab had become the most influential research facility in adaptive sports, with innovations being adopted by Paralympic teams worldwide. Alex, now 14 and recognized as one of the world's leading adaptive sports equipment designers, continued developing solutions that prioritized individual needs over industry conventions. Marcus Thompson had built his sports empire by following established industry practices and competing on traditional performance metrics. But a 12-year-old boy in a homemade wheelchair had taught him that the most valuable innovations often came from questioning fundamental assumptions about what was possible, necessary, and beneficial for the people they were supposed to serve. The Paralympic training facility that had once dismissively hosted Alex's demonstration now served as headquarters for a revolution in adaptive athletics. The boy who had been told his garage workshop couldn't compete with professional engineering had proven that the most powerful innovations often emerged from necessity, creativity, and the determination to solve problems that others accepted as unsolvable. Years later, when sports historians studied the transformation of Paralympic athletics, they would trace its origins to a 12-year-old boy who refused to accept that existing equipment represented the best possible solutions. Alex Rivera had proven that revolutionary improvements in human performance often required not just better engineering, but completely different ways of thinking about what athletic equipment should accomplish. The homemade wheelchair that had outperformed million-dollar professional equipment was now displayed in the Smithsonian Institution as an example of innovation that emerged from individual determination rather than institutional research. Alex's story became a reminder that the most transformative breakthroughs often come from those who approach established problems with fresh perspectives and the courage to challenge expert assumptions about what was impossible to improve. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.